Welcome to the Stoned Heen View, a podcast series which interviews a range of sport club representatives and leading professional sport club personnel during the COVID-19 shutdown. We find out what these people are doing during the current health crisis with some of our most popular sports seasons postponed. I'm Mark Heenan, and today I'm actually joined by a special co-host for the Stoned Heen View Summer Series for episode 38. His name is Shane Cutajar. And before we welcome Shane, Shane is, he runs a company called Jar Cutta Cricket, and he's the man behind the brand Jar Cutta, and he's also a great man from the Drysdale Cricket Club, former coach and a star batsman. And Shane, welcome to you to the Stoned Heen View. You came and joined us for a little cameo appearance on episode 20 with your good mate Rob Malcolm, and you also sponsored our episode for episode 20 with the promotional video and also the elevator pitch. So we welcome you, and I'll let you introduce our guest.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's good to be back, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to stand alongside you today and interview our guest today. Just one quick thing I will put in. I'm not quite sure who's going to be more nervous today, myself being your co-host or Mark Stone, because Mark will be watching this at some stage, no doubt. And Mark, if I nail this, your job might be looking in jeopardy. So hopefully I do you justice there. No doubt he will see it, Mark, and hopefully he will join you again at some stage in 2021 to do the hosting. But for today, you've got me, and again, Mark did say, Shane Cutajar from Jar Cutta Cricket. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce the coach of the Drysdale Cricket Club for season 2020-2021, Nick Hallam.
Oh, thanks, Shane. Thanks, Mark. Great to be here.
It's good to have you, Mark. Nick. And today's line of questioning, obviously, is in regards to the effects COVID-19 has had on local sport. And obviously, being the coach of the Drysdale Cricket Club, that has had a huge impact on the way that you've been able to plan and prepare for this particular season. I've had the pleasure of captaining and coaching you, and I've also played under you as my captain and my coach. So I know from both sides of that you're a very level-headed sort of a fellow, both in sport and also in your personal life. Not a lot flusters you. You're very organised, and I do know that you like to have structure and well-structured plans going forward. So there's been no doubt that with all of the extraordinary things that COVID has thrown up this year, you've had to deal with a lot more than just coaching the Drysdale Cricket Club. So what has been the most challenging thing so far in regards to season 2021 with the impacts of COVID?
Look, I guess early days, the challenge was actually understanding what we could and couldn't do. We weren't exactly sure when the season was going to start, when we could start training, and when a fixture would come out. So being able to create a pre-season schedule that, we could plan, prepare, and then communicate out to the club was really challenging to start with. And look, every other club was going through this at the same time. Like, we weren't immune to that, but making sure that everything that we did fell in line with the return to cricket guidelines that were put out by Cricket Victoria, as well as the BPCA. So there was a lot of things that had to fall into place before we could actually, pull the trigger on actually putting the pre-season together. How long that would be, which we managed to have a 12-session pre-season, which I thought was pretty good considering the short time period that we had to really start that going. And then obviously trying to have a pre-season that you could adapt and mould depending on the changing environment and the changing restrictions.
Take us into the pre-season, because a lot happened in terms of the way your club structured up through the pre-season. So, I mean, obviously we'd just come out of stage 3 restrictions. There was a bit of conjecture about when you could start training and what facilities you could use. I mean, you as the coach, if you were, I don't know, you had people, you couldn't really visit other people at their houses and that sort of thing, like, in the midst of winter. But as we got closer to September, things started to change a little bit. But I mean, I'm looking at your pre-season diary or your pre-season dates, and The first date was on the 24th of September, and looking at the COVID safe requirements for training, players had to check in and check out, whether that was doing a QR scan code, masks must be worn by players over the age of 12, the social distancing, no high fives, no handshakes, casual contact, the sanitising every 30 to 40 minutes. Obviously, this is still in play with there's no sweat or saliva on the ball, but that makes it hard. And then obviously the groups of 10. So what were some of the things that you found most challenging in just getting the pre-season off the ground? Because it was traditionally a bit later. Generally, you would, have indoor net training maybe in August, and that didn't sort of occur because we're in that sort of stage 3, and even with people in Melbourne in stage 4. But what were some of those challenges that I mentioned about the COVID safe requirements for pre-season training?
Well, it was condensed, for one. It was basically a 6-week lead-in rather than potentially sometimes we used to do 10, 12 weeks. So a bit more flexibility there. But also having the groups of 10. So we could only have 10 in the nets plus a coach, 10 on one side of the ground and 10 on the other side of the ground. And they couldn't co-mingle, so they had to be separated for the duration of the training session. So come in, train in your group of 10, your hub of 10, and then we'd rotate through if possible. But the challenge was that not everyone in local cricket turns up to training exactly at 5:30 ready to go, because there's work commitments, family commitments, junior cricket, all of those different things. So being able to have a hub that had a variety of different players in there, batsmen, bowlers, fielders, whether it was a field drill, a net session, it was challenging to get the right mix, because you couldn't mix people in the groups. So that was a big challenge. And then having probably 4 or 5 different sessions to be able to implement at short notice, depending on the numbers that you got. So that was some of the challenges for sure.
Nick's personal life and his work, what he actually does as a profession, he went through a lot of COVID management training. Nick works in an office block with a lot of people, and also has the general public that access his services as well. So I was saying to Nick and asking him about the fact that he went through a lot of extensive COVID management training from a professional point of view. And my question was, did that help trying to set up the hub scenario with the cricket club at Drysdale, and whether or not he thought that the BPCA, the state government and Cricket Victoria got the management of the cricket season right, or if he thought that it may have been a little bit too lean, or maybe it may have been a little bit too excessive to get cricket going at a local level.
From a work perspective, we were running through this early March, really, when this started to play out. But the key parts of the COVID risk management were around the contact tracing, so making sure people are checking in, the signage, so making sure your signage is appropriate for the amount of people you can have in different spaces, social distancing and sanitising. And they were the 4 real key components when we started out. And that was no different to what happened with the cricket club and how we set that up. One of the really important things early days when we were trying to get this set up with the cricket club was having the committee really supportive of it as well. So they were really supportive of making sure that we were doing the right things, and led by David Sykes as well. He was really keen to make sure that we were seen as a role model within the community and making sure we're doing all the right things. Because we were trying to get a season up and running, I can understand why Cricket Victoria were really quite conservative with how they reintroduced the training and then the actual return to play guidelines. I can understand why they were conservative, because it's easier to go back and defend that rather than going, opening it up a little bit too quickly, and then something happens, and then you potentially have a complete shutdown of the competition. Or what could have potentially happened was a club actually, had a case of COVID and then was potentially 14 days in isolation depending on how they were running their training and how well they'd done their contact tracing and their sign in, sign out.
How did you find with, say, people at the club that might have been, I don't know, that they might not want to use technology, or they a bit reluctant to do all those things like, scan in with a QR code? I suppose understand cricket from a different point of view, where you're not just wearing masks, but, there might be people that are trying to set up on Zoom and have committee meetings. How was it for the older folk of the club to not necessarily meetings in person? You couldn't have a drink after the game. I mean, there would have been restrictions there, like, the Thursday night dinners. I'm playing at a cricket club at the moment, and we've only just started to go back into that environment where you're going into an indoor environment after you do your net session, instead of being outside. So, and wearing your mask. And like, how did people find that within the Drysdale Cricket Club, the ones that have been there for many years? Was it challenging for them? And do they want to still continue to play cricket in that sort of COVID norm?
We like, even just in basic practical terms, we had a hard copy sign in, sign out sheet. So that made it easy if someone didn't have a phone to be able to use a QR code. That's just a really sort of practical example of people that would not necessarily have the IT equipment. But if we took ourselves back to the end of last season, our presentation night was held via Zoom. So when this year came around and we had to start meeting as a committee via Zoom, it was an easier process to get up and running. So we didn't have too many troubles in that space. But I guess what we did learn is that we need to be extremely adaptable, pivot really quickly, and start to understand that there is a new norm, and that it's okay. We just need to adapt.
But do you think we will get back to some sort of pre-COVID normal next year?
Well, I think we'll probably move into that from the middle of January into February. Everything going well. I think that in terms of what I meant by a new norm, where we're able to adapt to situations and not just run with the status quo of what we've always done is the way that we'll always do. And I think we've probably learnt a lot as a cricket club over the last 6 months that, we're heavily reliant on kiosk, bar and meals, as well as sponsorship. So when that revenue gets taken away, that, we were able to adapt and start to put some more time into our sponsors and how we could, create exposure for them and how we could support businesses locally in the community. So I guess that's what I was sort of talking about in terms of COVID normal, but I'm hopeful that we do move back to somewhat normality, because that's exactly why I play cricket as well. Like, it's still a recreation, it's still a family sport, and getting together on a Saturday night after a game of cricket, it's fantastic. And we got to do that last weekend, which was really good. And it was the first sense that things were starting to become a little bit more normal. We've dropped having to wear the masks while we're playing, while we're watching and waiting to bat and doing all that sort of stuff. So, that is, I think, the phase step through to normal. And I guess the government attached the COVID normal to it, because that's what they need to do to keep everyone.
Are there learnings from not just COVID, but how to not perform batting and bowling and fielding, but with these eased restrictions, do you feel that when you go into the second half of the season that you can just go out and play cricket without having to have as many worries about, whether your club's doing the right thing via COVID?
Yeah, look, I would say even the last fortnight, we've felt that, and it's probably shown a little bit in our performances. Certainly seen some improvement in the last 2 weeks. Drysdale traditionally have played the 2-day game probably a lot better than 1-day cricket. And we've taken a little bit of time just to get the wheels in motion this season. But it does feel like there's a little bit of a weight lifted in that. That space with COVID was just always there. So yeah, the last fortnight have been really promising. As you said before, there's 7 games after Christmas. It's 42 points on the line, and we've just got to do everything right to grab as many of those on the run home, and try and finish up in the positive part of the ledger, and give ourselves a good chance of trying to push for a final spot. That's all you can do, and that's what we're keen to do.
And potentially an earlier finish to the season, having looked at the dates, and when you recommence on January 9 for the second half of the season, if you take that up and there's no heat off, or there's no games being abandoned due to weather, and obviously the temperature rule being in place, that if there's no heat offs or rain in that sense, that potentially the grand final could be played in early March. So it is going to be a shorter season in that sense.
Yeah, will be, but we'll fit in 14 games, and it'll be a fair season. The club that wins the premiership at the end of the year has had a solid year, and they've performed the best, and they deserve it. So just like any other season. So yeah, the shorter season, I guess, is a little bit refreshing in some ways.
Certainly is, especially when you're getting to the older stages and the latter part of your career. Playing all one day it is nice, I must admit. So on a lighter note, Nick, obviously we've spoken about the serious side of COVID, all of the stuff, and that's from obviously a sporting but also a community point of view as well. It is a very serious subject. It's something that we had to take seriously to make sure that we did get a cricket season up and running. My first question related around the pressures of being the coach and being the captain. And if I do remember rightly, I was standing at first slip one of the early games this particular season, and we were waiting for the opening bowler to bowl the first ball of the game, and he couldn't for some reason. We might just have a little light-hearted look at the reasons why maybe COVID affected some thought processes there leading into a 40 innings one game.
Yeah, well, how reliant are we on the umpires to give us the ball out in the ground?
That's right. So yeah, so I suppose you do have a little bit of an angle there for a bit of blame for somebody else, because generally speaking, flick the ball to the umpire on walking out of the rooms.
I think I heard about this yesterday, vaguely, about not bringing the ball out. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, that actually, Shane, happened twice. So. And funny enough, speaking with some of the other captains as we've moved through the first part of the season, not the only one to have done it.
I don't doubt that. As you said, it is a habit. There's a lot of habits happen in cricket. You only got to watch Steve Smith to know that. But throwing the ball to the umpire before the start of the innings is a habit that you do just get used to doing.
Well, there was another one in that first game against Inverleigh where they called drinks, and obviously we weren't able to have the drinks come out. So all the guys went into the change rooms, and I went in there 5 minutes later, all having a chin bag. Had to pull you back out onto the ground. It was about a 15-minute drinks break in the rooms. So
I'll take some blame for that. I think I was a bit of a ringleader there. We went in for a quick drink, Mark, because you can't have drinks out on the ground. Obviously, you have to bring your own drinks and your own afternoon tea to the games now. So, no, that's right. So the first drinks break of the season at the 20-over mark, we all went in, and I wasn't in much of a hurry to get back out on the ground. So Nick did have to come in and say, "Hey, boys, it's just drinks. It's not smoko yet. So get back out on the ground."
It's interesting in your own afternoon tea. There's not too many blokes bringing bakers to pull apart these days to eat themselves. So
that's right.
Tim Tams, no one's bringing Tim Tams. Everyone's bringing a proper afternoon tea. So I guess when afternoon teas come back, the standard's got to improve, I think.
Well,
it should, absolutely.
Shane Cutajar, I can tell you my pre-ritual, have a Mother Energy drink before the game, and then a bit of some Savoys or some, like a light biscuit in between that break as well. But Nick, we wanted to talk about you being the poster boy for a particular bat brand out there. I saw an article that was in the the Geelong Advertiser, and it was talking about Nick Hallam being appointed the senior coach of the Drysdale Cricket Club. And lo and behold, I see this big bat sticker, and I think, is this guy the poster boy for Jar Cutta Cricket? Who did that deal? Because I'm waiting for a bat contract from Jar Cutta Cricket, and I haven't got one yet. But more to the point, I just saw your name up in lights with Jar Cutta Cricket. What's the association? I know it's involved with the Drysdale Cricket Club, but what was the deal there to get that poster or that picture in the paper with Jar Cutta Cricket?
Yeah, well, one of the good things, obviously, Shane's a good mate as well, but supporting local guys, giving it a crack and making good cricket bats. Shane's put together a pretty handy bat modelled on one of my favourite ones, which is coming together really nicely. But there's no official deal there at all. Shane, is there?
No, I was just as surprised as Mark to see that in the paper. No deals there. Sorry, Mark, no big scoop there for you.
No plants. It was, hey, Nick, out there, there's a prized possession. There was a note on the Drysdale Hawks Cricket Club Facebook page for 2020-21. It says in these words, "The operation has begun. I've been given very clear instructions on this bat. Hashtag Jar Cutta, hashtag Jar Cutta refurb." Has this prized possession made its way into, the Tony Gregg sort of prize memorabilia up at the Drysdale Cricket Club? Is it an ornament? I think we know whose old bat that we're talking about. Has it made its way to the Drysdale Cricket Club yet?
Look, I think it has made its way out onto the ground. I'm not sure that we should be prematurely retiring it into the trophy cabinet, though. I think it's got a few more years left in it.
And how's that old fella going, Shane Cutajar? Has he been impressed with your work with refurbs and fixing up bats? Is it like a Christmas present for him when you fix it up? What's happening there?
Yeah, no, he's been very happy, as has all the customers, Mark, that have had their bats refurbed by Jar Cutta.
Is it nice to have a bit of time to reflect on the season? Because, effectively, we didn't know where we were going back, a few months ago, and how cricket season, just think about the end of last cricket season going into this cricket season, a lot's changed around the parameters of COVID. So I suppose you're probably thankful to get a cricket season off the ground, but have you, even though you might not be where you are on the ladder in terms of A2, is there some sense of relief or being proud that as a club that you've been managed to stay together during this period?
Yeah, look, you couldn't be prouder of the guys in terms of, we haven't had the start to the season that we would have liked. We're pretty clear on that. But the way in which we've stuck together, the positivity around the club and the general numbers around the club as well have been nothing short of fantastic. And, the committee right behind everyone around the club, getting really, really good support from David Sykes as president. And the club's really positive position off field. I think with that, it starts to drive positive results on field. We've put a lot of time into our junior development through the grades as well. We've had a really, a strong portion of junior cricketers playing through our C grade, B grade, and also A grade. We've got, Bailey Sykes is going to be a really super player. He's a super talent. And we've debuted a 14-year-old wicketkeeper who's kept in A grade for the duration of the first half of this season, and he has grown exponentially to where he performed in his last game. He took 3 catches and a run out and made 9 not out. So Lockie Wilson is a product of the future as well, and it's just really important that we continue to facilitate the development of those guys so that we can start to get them filtering through A grade and B grade. And then, because, Shane and myself and some of the other guys won't be, around for, the next 15 years playing A-grade cricket. We need to make sure that when we leave the game or, we drop back through the grades, that we're leaving the club in a better position than what we found it. And I think we're on the right track. 2021 is a really big start to the year for us. Really looking forward to getting into it. Having a few wins.
And just a quick one, how much motivation is there to get back to playing A1? I mean, wasn't that long ago that you and Shane were part of a premiership at Drysdale I know it was the best of the best, but is there much of an emphasis on getting back to A1 with that future plan?
I think in terms of it, if you look at a long-term plan, then absolutely that's where the club would love to be. But I think we've spent a little bit too much time thinking about that throughout the last, 12, 18 months, rather than concentrating on what we need to work, practical training, technique, club, focusing on the club as a whole, and not too much on just A grade getting back into A1. So, success doesn't necessarily just mean that we go back into A1, because that, we need success through the club, whether it's on field, off field. And I think, we've got to make sure that we don't have the approach of we're looking down, because at the moment we're the ones looking up. Do you know what I mean? We're at the bottom portion of the ladder at the moment. So we've just got to concentrate on it week by week. I know there's cliches, but at this stage is getting the points after Christmas, and not just focusing on A1, and that defines whether we're successful or not.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, we wanted to thank you for being on the Stoned Heen View podcast. This is episode 38. And it's also the summer series. So it's a little bit of a different look to what we do for the summer. And obviously, we'll touch base with Shane about thanks to him for co-hosting in a sec. But we wanted to thank you for your time. And obviously, I think you deserve a pat on the back for what you've had to go through, not just being the coach for this season, but to go through that COVID period and lead your club through that as well. It's been a big job. And I guess in a lot of ways, hopefully you see the rewards in the second half of the season with some more wins. So thanks for joining us on the Stoned Heen View Summer Series for episode 38.
Thanks very much, Mark. Thanks, Shane.
And no, Shane Cutajar, impressive guest. And I wanted to thank you for filling the shoes of not only Mark Stone, but also we've had another co-host throughout the summer series in Ben Carbonaro. And we'll have him on back in a few episodes to talk about a few other sports, including racing and netball. But enjoyable experience. And thanks for showing us your bat shed again. And really appreciate your time.
No worries, Mark. Anytime. And again, if Mark gets a bit jittery because he's watched me doing it, then I'm always available to give you a chop out.
Absolutely. We're just managers. So you can get in contact at any stage if you wanted to get onto the show, if you have a guest on mine in sport. This is the summer series, so you can check out the Stoned Heen View on Facebook, and we'll see if we can get it up on the Drysdale Cricket Club Facebook page for this podcast. We're also on Instagram as well, and our podcast is also available on Apple Podcasts, and also the Stoned Heen View is on Spotify, and our launching platform is Podbean. And the Stoned Heen View also has a YouTube channel and a Twitter account at Stoned Heen View. So till next time, it's the Stoned Heen View that has been episode 38. We look forward to your company next time, and we'll have one more show before the end of the year, and we look forward to that guest. So it's been episode 38. Thanks for your time, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.